Welcome to In the Process. In this episode, I have an ex-colleague of mine and my friend Sam Tilakasiri, who's here with us today. Welcome, Sam.
Hey, Matt.
Sam, I'll do a quick intro on you and then you tell us about your story. Obviously, the stage is going to be yours, but Sam and I know each other from our time at Rolls-Royce in Bristol. We worked several hours side by side, learned a lot from each other. And Sam has always been someone I highly respected as a leader in business. So Sam is currently the Vice President of Sales in Rolls-Royce and focused on the aerospace industry. Yes, Sam, welcome again. And why don't we kick off directly with you telling us a little bit about your story? What's brought you to where you are today in life, especially your role in Rolls-Royce? Tell us a little bit about your story, please.
Thank you so much, Matt. And just want to say, on behalf of all your colleagues at Rolls-Royce, we just want to say we're so proud of you. And I'd just like to say that personally, it's been really inspirational connecting with you in the last few months. I think what you're doing is brilliant and I really love it. And thank you for inviting me to share my story. It's not something I do often. But just want to start by leveling the playing field because I know obviously we've got background, but I did a training course a few weeks ago where people were invited to share their story, and I think there was some hesitation between some colleagues. When I told my story with someone I'd never met, it went in a direction I wasn't expecting at all. That this person I'd never met told me, "Wow, this is an amazing story. You should make it into a movie." And it just goes to show, I don't think I've got the best story in the world, but everyone has a story to share and it's something that they can use to inspire others. So I'm hoping in the story that I share, I can just share a few bits of advice that can help someone develop their career or their life in general. I think to start my story, really, it is about grit and determination, courage to overcome setbacks. But I also want to say that, and I think every humble leader needs to do this, hey, I had quite a few advantages in life, and these are things that gave me a position so that I could get into leadership. So there's quite a lot of privileges that I do want to bring out through the story that I say, because I'm a profound believer in equity. And those that aren't familiar with equity, what equity does really is try and create a platform where people with different backgrounds, different positions, different advantages, disadvantages in life can still go for any opportunity. And that's something I'm really passionate about. So I actually, as I said, I did this in a course a few weeks ago. So just showing on screen, I did sketch out my life story. You won't be able to see this, but it is something that is actually quite powerful for me. So it's going to kind of flip between the stuff that went well and the stuff that didn't go so well. So and then to conclude how that led me to where I am at Rolls-Royce. So I think just winding back to childhood, really grateful. I grew up in a household which was safe. I had a roof over my head. Food on a table was never an issue to me. And my parents also gave me that luxury at an early age to travel. They took me on trips all around the world. And that gave me an inspiration for the rest of my life. I think the first setback I really had was probably as I was approaching early teenage years. I think, this is where I guess you start to really recognize your role in the world around you. At that time, my mum's mother just passed away quite unexpectedly. There were some difficulties at home, normal life kind of challenges, I would say. But I was really starting to become conscious of how I didn't always fit in with the society around me. And this did make me kind of feel a little bit like, okay, what is my purpose? What can I do? I know I'm different. I feel different. But how do I bring that to a place where I can make it my own? So I started to grow up. I went to school. Again, another privilege that I had, which I don't think, particularly people that reach really senior leadership positions don't often say, is I managed to get good grades at school. And I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it. I did find getting through school relatively, not too tricky. That paved the way to getting a good place in a university. And again, I think through these periods, I did have good friends around me that gave me anchors to push myself to those kind of positive goals. And also, of course, my family was really supportive of that. And again, I think, so the next setback I really remember as I get into kind of early adult life is work-life balance. And the first year of university for me was really hard. I was not balancing work and life at all well. It was a bit of a car crash, if I'm honest with you. There was a lot of real challenges just living on my own, I would say. And also academically, I went from being the top student in my class to being, struggling to scrape through the year. And it was a bit of a kind of watershed moment where I realized, what is going on? How am I going to cope? How do I get through this situation? I've worked so hard all these years. How do I get out? And I kind of dig deep, really pull my socks up, start to realize I've got to learn how to be on my own and be independent. I think it's something that happens with every adult, but it happens at different ages for everyone. But it is something that is important, and I really worked hard, and I managed to pull it together to try and get the grades that I needed, and that's how I then ultimately joined Rolls-Royce straight from university, which I was just so proud of when I got that position, because it was a tough time. It was straight after the 2008 recession, a lot of uncertainty in the world. I think a lot of people kind of who are in their early 20s will probably resonate with them, that it's difficult to find a good job. And I was really glad that I got my position there at Rolls-Royce as a graduate. So my career starts to blossom, and that really starts to go well. I do the graduate scheme. I managed to do rotations around the world, Singapore. I worked at London Heathrow for a bit. I then moved to Berlin. Really, that kind of travel bug that I picked up when I was a kid was really starting to blossom now as an early adult. And I started to get to know the world better, which was great. And I think we'll come on to that a bit later in terms of how that gives me cultural understanding. And then I started to get hit by waves of family kind of challenges. So I think the first one was probably my mum's dad passed away whilst I was kind of in my graduate scheme. Then I think she had some sort of breakdown quite soon after that, which was really challenging for me and the family. It took several years to try and progress through it. And I always felt guilty because I was still a young guy trying to enjoy my life. I was living in Berlin at that point. And then my dad got cancer. And it was all kind of like layers of these things happening. And I just started feeling really lonely in Berlin. And that was the point where I was kind of like, I've got to move back home. And that was kind of the reason I moved back to Bristol, to be honest, because it allowed me to stay with Rolls-Royce, but meant I didn't have to feel so far apart. It was a car journey as opposed to a plane journey, which I think psychologically sometimes has quite a big impact. And for those listening that have family members in different locations, I'm sure this will resonate. So it was tough, really tough. And then kind of moving back to Bristol, kind of met my partner. My work life was kind of progressing quite well in Bristol. I managed to progress into management quite quickly. My goals were starting to align, and it was really quite a good time. COVID kicked in, but I had a stable relationship, and my wife, we were going to get married in the year after the start of the COVID pandemic. So really positive time, really great. I felt like I was starting to turn a corner. And then as soon as we got married, we've had basically setback after setback, and it's kind of really been quite tough to digest. And these are personal setbacks now. So multiple family kind of health issues, including a bereavement that was completely unexpected and compounded by, I think, something which is often quite taboo, not widely spoken enough as it should be, kind of a really difficult fertility journey that my wife and I have gone through. And it's something where, again, it's a really tough moment, I think, where I am at the moment. But I really feel like, whilst I'm trying to pull out of it from a personal perspective, it's driving some fuel towards how I can create positive leadership examples. So yeah, that's just a bit about my story. It's quite detailed and probably more than anyone wants to know at this stage, but I'm really glad to share it with you and whoever else listens to this. And I think leads on to nicely why I am where I am at Rolls-Royce today as a leader, as you say, in the aerospace environment. So for me, and this is my tagline, I like to bring people together to deliver results. And through my personal struggles, what I see is so much of relatable personal skills that I can bring to understanding people to try and get to those solutions. I think, yeah, I really enjoy it at the moment because there's no problem that's the same. Every problem is unique, and it's really encouraging some creativity. Yeah, that's kind of my story and what led me to my role at Rolls-Royce.
Thank you, Sam. First of all, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for being so open. It's not easy to share the experiences that you've gone through. Most of us actually bury them somewhere and never talk about them. You're talking about them here in a podcast that hopefully many others will listen to. So, first of all, huge thank you and respect, for being so courageous.
Thanks, man.
You said something really valuable at the end there. You said these setbacks are the fuel for how I show up as a leader. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Because I think that's very valuable. Can you talk about that fuel? What is that? And how does it drive you as a leader? And how does it relate to the setback?
Yeah, I think the first fuel that it brings to me, and it's something that was quite core even before some of the recent setbacks, is emotional intelligence. I see so many leaders that maybe, and again, I don't think there's any training course that can give you emotional intelligence. It is down to life experience, but empathy is so important to understand how to drive for delivery on things. When you're in a leadership position, there's often a lot of strong expectation to try and get things delivered, execution focus. If you don't understand what might be going on with other people, it's impossible for you to relate. It's impossible for you to be like, yeah, why aren't you just getting this done? And I've definitely been that person before. So I think since I've become more aware of the sort of things that can hold people back in life, it's given me that different perspective with people on how to really drive for delivery, how to listen well. I'd say I think those are the fuel, the core of the fuel that it's providing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, empathy driving results, not very common, especially in the past, that we think about skills like empathy actually driving tangible results. So I want to continue digging with your permission because it's very valuable what you're talking about. Let's open that up for others as well. Empathy driving results. You just spoke about the skill, for example, of active listening. What else is there? How do you see that connection between empathy, emotional intelligence, and tangible results in business?
Yeah. So empathy and active listening are really the foundation of delivering the result that is expected. Any good leader that doesn't start with active listening is going to probably lead towards results. They may create results, but it might not be the right result because they've not really truly listened to what is needed to guide the ship towards what's required. It's really powerful to really pair an empathy in that approach because when you truly active listen, you're repeating what the other person is saying, you're really driving towards what is needed to be done to get to the solution. And as leaders, we all have a role in impacting change and providing change to the right, maybe not the right destination, but to the destination which at least feels like the right thing for the people that are going on that journey with you.
Yeah, I love that. It kind of reminds me of situational leadership, right? What does the situation need, and how do I actually show up with a leadership style that serves the situation? And for that, active listening, it's an area that I learned far down the line in my leadership, how much value I actually myself missed out on because I wasn't yet mastering the skill of active listening, right? Because we're so under pressure, and I'm sure you can strongly relate to that in the business environments that you've been in. Thank you. Well, that's really valuable. You also touched in your history or in your story about working across cultures. So you've been to Singapore, you've been to Berlin, you've worked in the UK, and so on. Can you tell us a little bit about how that experience of working across cultures has shaped who you are, and especially who you are as a leader?
Yeah, sure. So I think to start off, I'm so proud to have had a multicultural life so far. So I was born in the UK. My parents moved to the UK in the 1970s from Sri Lanka. So starting with that, Sri Lanka is at the very core of who I am. And it's such a warm culture, great food, really friendly people. It's also, so my heritage is Buddhist. So obviously there's a lot of talk about things like mindfulness and meditation. I actually grew up with a lot of these kind of uh, you know, concepts being instilled in me from my mum from a very early age. We used to go to temples, listen to kind of sermons, and really, at the time, I was engaged, but now I'm older. I feel like wow, it's such a powerful life skill it's given to me to be able to be at peace with myself and others. I think then moving on to my British culture, I love the UK and I've spent most of my life living in the UK. It is home. I love the fact that it is very multicultural as well as a society, and you can try and find areas where you can feel like you belong really truly, which is great. And then I'd just like to conclude by saying my wife is Greek, so I've got a strong kind of Mediterranean culture coming through. And again, it's another kind of really positive contribution to this cultural hot pot that I have burning inside me. And then how does that shape me as a kind of a leader and as an individual? I think for me, and I'll come on to this probably a little bit later in terms of leadership styles, but working around the world gives me a very broad lens on how to understand people. I think really it's that when you start to dig underneath the surface of cultures, you start to understand how people really work. And that's really powerful because it gives you an advantage in business and also leadership situations.
I love that. And what you just said, when you dig one level deeper in a culture, you actually understand how people really work. And that just, in my mind, immediately what went off is cultural transformation. By the way, I see one theme emerging in your life because you talk about fuel, you talk about hot pot of cultures burning. There seems to be a common theme of fire. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. By the way, I think you're very lucky, like you said, that you have grown up with some of the Buddhist practices that, you know, some of us these days are trying to get much closer to because we haven't grown up with those. Um, so can you talk a little bit, Sam, now about what good leadership looks like to you in the world we live in today?
Yeah, no, firstly, just to come back to the fact that I'm talking about burning hot pot, I think it's really coming back to the grit and determination that I really wanted to kind of bring out. And I think, yeah, really, I appreciate that recognition of the fuel that I think you recognize. I'm very passionate and I'm very motivated to try and bring change upon myself and work with others to bring about positive change. And I think leading on to their great or good leadership, it starts with mindset. And again, I've been really lucky in my time at Rolls-Royce. I was a facilitator for a high performance culture course. I did quite a few sessions where I actively led people to learn how to deliver results by using quite simple kind of life concepts and understanding how culture works in a business. And it's really that mindset, the ability to see the bigger picture, to unlock the potential of people is really there. For me, being a great leader is being able to inspire people to become better. I think we talked about it before, from boss to coach. coaching is really important to me, and it's about seeing the potential in people. And a good leader, in my opinion, is not so egoistic and ego. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. They're
Egocentric.
not going to be. Yeah, yeah, exactly. They are there to try and bring the best out in other people. And for me, that's always been my motivation. It's about trying to see how I can almost make someone else's day. And that kind of gives me the validation I need. I'm doing a good job when someone else has a great day. And that is really what I want to try and do. I think for me, a role model for this, and I did a recent LinkedIn post about this. My wife and I, we went to a talk with Jacinda Ardern. She was so inspiring. She talked about what she did and how she inspired other people. What impressed me was her ability to kind of translate complex topics, quite a lot of technical detail, into something that was quite relatable. And I think if I quote her correctly, particularly through the COVID pandemic, where we were all unsure what was the right thing to do, she said in her message to the people, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, this is what I think we should do. 3 simple statements that just kind of create some clarity towards a destination, whilst also inviting almost feedback and curiosity from the audience. And again, that's back to empathy and active listening. You need to be willing to listen to feedback, take it on board, even if sometimes that feedback isn't what you want to hear.
Seems like there's a balance of things. This is what I know and this is what I don't know is so powerful because there's vulnerability there. There's determination, direction, and vulnerability at the same time, which just felt really good when you said that because it's both coexisting.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And I guess as we now slowly approach the end of the podcast, the usual question that I always ask, what is one message you would want to leave with this audience today that is going to be listening to this podcast?
Well, thank you, Matt, for listening to me. And I think, I hope there's a lot of people here that are either leaders today or thinking about becoming a leader in future. And we do need good leaders. But my one key message is to every leader is that leadership is a privilege, right? It's not a guarantee that most people. So when you do end up in that position, just take time, take it a bit slow to try and digest what you're really accountable for, and just give it your best go. Give it your best go, engage with the people, and you can't go too far wrong. But one thing I would never do as a leader is kind of almost, I see this with some leaders, they say, I just ended up here by chance. And for me, that is a massive kind of no. You never say that. Even if it has been the truth, you say, I'm so privileged to be in this position. I'm going to try my best to make it work. So that's my kind of key takeaway.
Sam, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Matt. It's been an absolute privilege.
And I hope this is going to be useful for anyone that listens, their leadership process and in their leadership journey. So until next time.